Long time no see. It hasn't been as long as the last gap, thankfully, because that was embarrassing. Still married, we're good. We are in our new apartment, but unfortunately, I am not doing an apartment tour. Sorry, it's when you first move into a place, there is a very short window of moving in versus living in. And that that time passed because we moved in at the beginning of November, and then it was the holidays, and then January, and now here we are at the end of February. So I apologize. Ugh. So not going to be doing a house tour. I also am probably not going to be doing the normal vlog style anymore because I want to do something different with this YouTube channel. And it's my YouTube channel, so I get to do what I want, and there's nothing that you can do about it. I guess you could just, not watch, but you wouldn't do that to me, right? Right? So, yeah, it's just a good time. What I want to do with this YouTube channel is I've been thinking about it. And my mental health has been low for the past year, I want to say. So I have really been looking for a creative outlet. I want to keep making YouTube videos, but I want to be able to incorporate something that I love and I know that I will continue to do and is sustainable. Ooh, sorry. Got a little crazy there. And I want to get off my phone more often. I want to spend less time staring at my phone and doom scrolling TikTok or whatever. So I have decided to change this YouTube channel into a reading channel. More of a book review / book recommendations channel, because I have always enjoyed reading. It's been a hobby that I've had since I was able to read at the ripe old age of 5. And I love talking about books. I love analyzing them. I love theorizing things. And I feel like the people that are in my immediate circle don't get as into it as I do. And so I feel like this would be a good outlet for that. And so, this video, I'm going to be talking about Brandon Sanderson and his books, because I have been reading the Stormlight Archives. That is what I'm currently reading. I recently finished Oathbringer, about a month ago. And so, I will be talking about that. However, because it's been about a month since I have actually finished a book, and I haven't really read, because this month has also been kind of crazy. So what I'll do is, I think more people need to read Brandon Sanderson. So I'm going to give you 3 recommendations of books that I think are good introductions to Brandon Sanderson. A lot of the reasons why people either just don't even bother picking up a Brandon Sanderson book in the first place is because this is about the average length of one of them. Girl. And so it can be very intimidating. If you don't get it, if you don't understand, you'll have a really hard time getting into his more dense books, his more lore intense things. And so I'm here to give you 3 recommendations that I feel like will help ease you into the wonderful world of Brandon Sanderson that is the Cosmere. So to transition into that, the Cosmere is kind of like Brandon Sanderson's MCU. The books, not all of the books that he's written are in the Cosmere, but all of the books that are in the Cosmere universe happen within the Cosmere universe. A lot of them happen on different planets, but they're all occurring in the same universe. We don't know, or at least I don't know, if they're occurring at the same time. Chronologically, I don't think anybody really knows what the actual order is. Everyone has different opinions on the correct order of reading the Cosmere. I don't think it really matters. The reason why people have such a harsh opinion on it, I think, is because Brandon Sanderson has a lot of Easter eggs within the Cosmere. And one thing that I really appreciate about his Easter eggs is they don't drive the plot. Like, if you haven't read a book where a certain race is from, if that race shows up in the book that you're reading, you're not gonna feel like you're missing out on something. You're not gonna be like, I feel like I'm missing out on vital information that is important to the story. No, it's just a fun little thing that if you have read the other book, you're like, oh my gosh, this person is from this planet, or whoa, I think this person just used this magic system. It's really cool, and Brandon is really tasteful in the way that he puts his little Easter eggs in. So a lot of people have ways, like reading orders that will help you get the most out of those little Easter eggs. Unpopular opinion, I don't think it really matters. And Brandon Sanderson himself has said that as long as you're enjoying what you're reading, it doesn't actually matter the order that you read the different series in. So, please don't come after me. So, without further ado, the first book that I always recommend to people that ask me what book they should start with when wanting to get into Brandon Sanderson, Tress of the Emerald Sea. I'm going to see if I can get that to stand up. Okay, cool. Tress of the Emerald Sea. Now, this book, it's short for Brandon Sanderson. It's 365 pages. It's fairly recent. This is a newer book, but it's a standalone. And it's just a fun, whimsical adventure about a young girl whose childhood friend / lover is taken away, and she sets off to bring him back, essentially. And it's a very easy to digest story. It's very simple. There's not a whole lot of external factors going on in the story. There's not a whole lot of like backstory or lore that really needs to be like unpacked. And so that's why I recommend this first, because it's a fun story. It really gives you a really good introduction of Brandon's ability to create a world that is just so unique and so magical, but it makes sense. It doesn't seem like too far-fetched. Like, I'm like, yeah, there could be a planet out there where what is going on in this world is happening. And so it's so fun and it's cute, and I love this. So Tress in the Emerald Sea, 100%. The next book that I recommend to people is very similar to Tress of the Emerald Sea in that it's a standalone, and it's just a very easy, like, the story itself is very simple. There's not a whole lot of depth that goes on. This one, it's different, but I recommend it for similar reasons. It's Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. Now, this book, I would say, while Tress of the Emerald Sea is definitely like whimsical, fun adventure, this one is a little more gritty. It's got a lot more mystery surrounding it. If you've seen the movie Your Name, like the Japanese animated one, kind of similar themes. There's the girl, Yumi, and then this guy, Painter. They live in two different worlds, and one day he wakes up in her body, and her spirit, like his spirit essentially pushed hers out of her body. So they don't swap places. One of their spirits just goes and inhabits the other one while their original spirit is still there. And so there's apparently something going on in both of their worlds, and they're trying to figure it out. And it's really interesting. It's really good. I really like it. The plot twist in this one, I was not expecting at all. I had my theories. I had my surefire thoughts of what was going to happen, and that's not what happened at all, which is very impressive because I'm really good at pattern recognition because I've read so many books, and so it's very rare that a book just completely catches me so off guard, especially when it's a seemingly simple, easy to digest book such as this one. So this one's really fun. It's also really unique, and it's very non-committal because it's a standalone, and so if you don't like it, it's just a standalone. So, but I think you will. It's very good. I really like it a lot. So that's Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. Okay, this last book that I recommend, little context about this one. So those two were very easy, fun reads. Oh, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, it's 362 pages. So they're both less than 400 pages, fairly simple, easy stories, but still fun. Like, you're not gonna be bored with them. This last book, I feel like, is an in-between. It is a lot more dense. There is a lot more exposition that needs to be had in this book. And where Tress of the Emerald Sea only focuses on her, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, it goes back and forth between Yumi and Painter. This book switches between 3 characters' perspectives. And they're all very different. And so there's just a lot more going on. And there's a magic system and there's mystery. And so, if you haven't guessed by now, it is Elantris. So essentially, without giving too much away, in Elantris, there was this group of people called Elantrians that could use magic. And anyone could become one. You would just wake up and you would be an Elantrian and you could use this magic and you would never age and you would never die. They were essentially gods. But one day, they all turned into decrepit creatures. I like to think of it as like late stage leprosy. Like, their skin is falling off their skin is rotting because they can't die, but they're not gods. They can't use the magic anymore. One day it was like the greatest honor to be one of these people. And then the next day it was, you are the scum of the earth, and they are now locked inside the city that had been like the gods' city. They're now sent in there, and this is still happening. People will wake up and their skin will be turning black, and it's just like, ugh, their hair's falling out. It's bad. And so one of the mysteries is finding out what happened. How did this happen? What's going on? Why can nobody no longer use magic? But another thing that's going on is there is a war, kind of like a crusade-esque war where there's this country who's founded upon this religion, like their ruler is their prophet god, like mouthpiece of God, and they go around conquering countries, and their motto is essentially convert or die. And so one of the characters is an Elantrian, and so he's trying to fix the situation. Another character is a high priest, if you will, from this country coming to Elantris to basically warn them and say, hi, we're coming to invade you in X amount of days, so convert or die. And then the third character, she is from the only other country in this world that has not been conquered. And so she was coming to marry like the son, like basically a political marriage to strengthen their countries to fight against this conquest of a country, these like tyrants. But when she shows up, her husband is presumed dead. And so she's trying to figure out what's going on and try to stay relevant because she's like, well, I need to be relevant or else they're just going to send me back home and then both of our countries are going to die. And so it's really interesting. There's a lot going on. And the last 100 pages are insane, but it's so good. Sorry, that was kind of a long rant, but I wanted to do this story justice without spoiling too much. So yeah, that's my last book recommendation. And I would recommend reading them in that order. those are my book recommendations for Brandon Sanderson. Now, I am getting into Stormlight Archive, so spoiler warning, if you don't want to be spoiled for any of the Stormlight Archive books, go to this time, wherever I end up putting it on the screen. Because I've read these books at such a sporadic rate, I don't quite remember what happens in each book. And so I am mainly just going to be talking about the characters, my thoughts on them, what has happened to them, and then Oathbringer was the one that I most recently finished, and so I will be talking about specific events that happened in Oathbringer, but if you haven't read Way of Kings, Warbreaker, Words of Radiance, or Oathbringer, and you don't want spoilers, skip ahead. Okay, welcome. So, this series has taken over my life. So to start off with characters, I'll just start off with Kaladin because, yeah, he's my son. And anytime that poor boy gets thrown back into the trenches of his own mind, I just want to reach into the book and hug him and tell him that it's going to be okay. Because as someone that struggles with mental health, I feel so deeply for Kaladin in those moments because it's like, yeah, I get it. And someone that doesn't struggle with that probably would be like, well, why doesn't he just get over it? You can't. That's not just something you can get over. So, especially the fact that he blames himself for his younger brother's death. He also blames himself for just all of those slaves that he had tried to help, and then they ended up getting killed. Like, this boy, he's so young. He's, 19 in the first book, I think? If he's not, he's 20. He's still so young. And to be so young and to have that much on your shoulders, yeah, it's going to weigh you down quite a bit. To the point where you're going to be standing at the edge of a cliff. Just thinking, I could just be done with all of this. But he doesn't, and he overcomes it. And it's so good because then he comes back in Bridge 4. It's so good. All of the Bridge boys, I just want to eat them up. I love all of them. Next up, I'm trying to think who next to talk about. Shallan. A lot of people don't like Shallan. A lot of people find her very insufferable, and they're just like, girl, get over yourself. Okay. You're telling me that if you killed both of your parents, your mom because your mom had tried to murder you, and your dad because he was trying to kill your brothers, all before you were 13, you'd be a little messed up too. Okay? Especially where she didn't have any mentors telling her that it's okay. She doesn't have to feel that anymore. She can let go. Until Oathbringer, when Wit finally does that. I wept when Wit gave Shallan a hug. I was like, holy crap. Finally, this poor girl has gone through so much. She has had to face her trauma in not a very healthy way or a very structured way due to the nature of Pattern and just the cryptics in general. You have to face your lies, but she was not taught how to process her trauma in a healthy way. And so she's so young and she doesn't know what to do. So of course, she's gonna do what seems easiest. Okay? Leave her alone. Adolin, my other son. I love him. He's so cute. He's so precious. It's just, and his character development is so good. When he killed Sadeas, I was like, deserved. Was Sadeas the most evil? No. Was I upset that he died? Absolutely not. I disliked him, and I'm glad that Adolin was the one to do it. Your Honor, he's innocent, but yeah, it's a good time. My poor boy in Shadesmar. He's just trying. The whole thing in Shadesmar and Oathbringer, everyone was just on the struggle bus. No one wanted to be there. Everyone wanted to, like, it just. But the thing is on the other side, it was going just as bad. It was just so bad. So, yeah, Adolin is my other son. They're all my children. And the fact that Adolin and Shallan are finally married. Speaking of my other favorite married couple, Dalinar and Navani. First of all, Navani is mother. She is mother. I love the way that Brandon Sanderson writes women. You can tell that he loves women because every single one of his female characters is complex, strong, smart. They have flaws. They are capable. It's so good. And Navani and Jasnah both exemplify that so well. Jasnah was one of my favorite characters, and she still is. I really hope she's more, like she comes up more in Rhythm of War, because I love the way that her mind works. Her and Navani, yum, 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 yum. I know Navani is a lot more relevant in the fourth one because of her and her Fabrials. I'm so excited. I just love when women... I love it. Navani that girl knew what she wanted. And she said, I'm gonna get it. I've waited too long. And so she pounced on Dalinar. She said, ah. And I said, absolutely, you go girl. I respect it so much. And then Dalinar. I'm gonna cry. I already loved Dalinar. I think that Dalinar may be my favorite character. I am a sucker for character development. What Dalinar went through, and like in Oathbringer, you're getting all of these flashbacks as Dalinar is remembering them, and you're learning more about who he was and the type of man that he was, and then you read about his relationship with Evie and how he viewed himself after the wars, and how he just kind of wasted himself away, and especially after what happened in the Rift Part 2, my jaw was on the floor along with the pool of tears that was escaping from my eyes. That was nuts. Insane in the membrane. And just so interesting, because now that I know more about Dalinar and like his whole situation, how like why he didn't remember Evie, and why he didn't really remember much of the war. Like he remembered, but not a whole lot. I want to go back and reread like Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, because like when Dalinar gave up Oathbringer, his shard blade, to pay for the bridgeman that came back and saved him, I was in hysterics. Mind you, I had been reading for 4 hours straight. I was like, this is a good man. This is a good man who understands the value of people. And so it's so interesting that like the character development that had happened since he went and saw Cultivation to the point of Way of Kings, and then how much more his character development means after reading Oathbringer and after reading what he had gone through, and how he had been trying to escape and hide from his pain for so long, to the point that he went to Night Watcher and ended up meeting with Cultivation. That says something. And the fact that the thrill was so big, Odium's influence on Dalinar throughout the whole war was so meticulously well placed. And like the thrill, I love the whole concept of the thrill. Like it was kind of like an animal. It didn't really have a reason for why it was doing things other than it just fed off of emotion, like Spren. It didn't have any necessarily ill intent. It just was following its instincts. But oh man. So at the end, when Odium was like, give me your pain, I can take it all away, it was me. I was the one that did that. Give it all to me. Let me take that on. That was me. I was there. It was because of me that Evie is dead. It was all this stuff. It's insane because if Odium had tried that tactic earlier, it would have worked. But because Dalinar had grown and he realized and he was able to take ownership and responsibility for his actions, when he says, "You cannot have my pain," that to me was an example of true triumph. Like, he triumphed over his past self. He came to terms with who he had been and accepted that he can be someone better. Like, he had gone to cultivation he'd gone to the Night Watcher seeking forgiveness, and he was able to forgive himself. And then when Evie comes to him and says that she forgives him, it gets me really emotional if you can't tell. I know some people that have beef with how long Brandon Sanderson's books are, specifically Oathbringer, because I will admit there are some parts that are slower. However, because of the way that Brandon Sanderson writes, it's not just filler. It's all important, and it all makes what happens later on so much more impactful. So, yeah, I think that Dalinar may be my favorite character just because of how complex, how human he is. He's so human, and I love that. Woo! Anyway, sorry about that. Moving on. Lift. Lift is great. I love her. I'm going to be reading Edgedancer probably today. Wit. I love him. Yeah. Going back to when Wit was talking with Shallan about the whole, I forget what the story is called. Like The Girl Who Looked Up. Something like that. That she had told in Words of Radiance. And so it was very interesting to hear him tell it to her, even though she's like, I already know this. But then at the end, it makes me so emotional. Oh my gosh. Here it is. Okay. So Wit had just told his silly story. He's like telling her that she's strong enough. She's stronger than the voices that tell her that she can't do it, essentially. And he says, there are certain things I know, Shallan. This is one of them. You can. After she says, I can't do it. You can. Find the balance. Accept the pain, but don't accept that you deserved it. And as someone that has experienced a lot of pain, not the same as Shallan, because holy crap, she is woo-wee. She is a whole bag of issues herself. But just like that really spoke to me because like you can't, it's okay to keep going. It's okay to, you know, live on and become better. You don't have to hold on to the hurt or the sorrow or just the negativity that your past life experiences have had on you. And that really spoke to me as someone that tends to hold on to things that are not good. So yeah, that was crazy. Who else? Seth. The opening to The Way of Kings, one of the coldest openings of any book I think I've ever read. Seth, Sons on Vellano, Truthless of Shinovar, wore white on the day he was to kill a king. Are you kidding me right now? And like, especially after reading Oathbringer and learning about like the Sons of Honor and the Skybreakers and all of that stuff, and learning about how the Parshendi killing Gavilar was so, like, there were so many layers to that. And Seth, you know, being a truthless and finding out that he actually spent all of those years killing for no reason because he was right. And then at the end, well, first of all, when, what's his name, Nen, the Herald of Justice, it starts with an N, I think it's like Nen or something like that, he gives Seth freaking, what's the sword's name? Vasher's sword, Nightbringer? Is that what? Nin, that's his name. Why can't I find it? It's bothering me. Oh my gosh, sorry, just Renarin. The whole thing with his spren actually being the spren of Odium. Or a spren of Odium. That was crazy. That was nutso. I'm very interested to see how that will play out. Nightblood. That's its name. The sword that Nin gives Seth. When he draws it, oh my gosh, that was so cool, because we don't really see Vasher draw it in Warbreaker. Like, at all. I also clocked Zahel as Vasher immediately. And also Azure, whatever her name is, Vivenna from Warbreaker, clocked her immediately. So that was fun. Moash can die in a hole. He is the scum of the earth and all things bad in this world and in Roshar. I hate him. He has no redeeming qualities. Brandon Sanderson has said that himself. When Moash killed Elhokar, I was enraged, to say the least. I was thoroughly pissed off, to put it lightly. I knew Elhokar was gonna die. I was like, he has come so far. He has to die. He has to die, and I knew he was gonna die, and I knew that Moash was probably gonna do it. But just, it all happened so fast. It all happened so fast. And the spiral that sequence of events sent Kaladin into, right before they go to Shadesmar, bonkers. Also, another character that is a slimy greaseball, Taravangian, clocked him immediately in Way of Kings. I was like, he seems a little too suspicious. He seems a little too nice. And then he had Seth's Oathstone, and turns out he was behind the killing of all the other slimy greaseball. And then at the end of this book, when he pledges himself to Odium, essentially, it makes me want to rip out all of my hair. So, yeah. Hi. That was a really awkward transition, because I realized about halfway through me talking that I'm no longer talking about spoilers. So, yes, I am very excited for Rhythm of War. I've heard that it's a lot of people's favorites, at least before the 5th book, Wind and Truth, before that one came out. Rhythm of War was a lot of people's favorites. And apparently it gets nuts, which is crazy considering that things are already absolutely bonkers in Oathbringer. So I'm excited to see where the story goes. I didn't even make it through the prologue because I want to read Edgedancer. But the prologue started with Navani. And so I am really, really hoping, and I've heard that Navani plays a really big role in Rhythm of War, so I'm excited to see her and her Fabrials. And yeah, hold on. I have, at the end of every video, what I want to do is I want to give a recommendation of a book that's different than what I have reviewed. Just in case you're not interested in Brandon Sanderson, I will give you another book recommendation. I'm gonna grab it. So don't go far, I'll be right back. I just saw how long I've been recording. That's insane. But the book recommendation that I would give that's different from Brandon Sanderson is The Will of the Many by James Islington. I think that's how you say his last name. Anything by James Islington. He has another series called the Licanius Trilogy. I haven't read that one. My husband has. He really likes it. This is book 1 of a series. This is the only book of the series that's out. The second one was supposed to come out sometime early this year, but it keeps getting pushed back because the author is sick. So keep that in mind. The end of this book feels like the end of a Christopher Nolan movie. Like, think Tenet or Inception or like Interstellar, where it just kind of ends and you don't know what's going on. You think you know, and then you don't. So it's very, very cool. It's very sci-fi fantasy-esque. There is magic, but it's very science-based. It's really, really cool. If you've read Red Rising, it kind of feels Red Rising-esque. There's a kid that gets picked up by a government authority, and he basically is meant to infiltrate this academy that is filled with super high political powers children, if that makes any sense. So it's very, very good. I need to reread it just because it's been a minute since I've read this one. This one is 620 pages, so a little longer, but it's so good. It's so cool. It's so cool. It has a lot of like Roman themes, like Roman Empire themes. So it's cool. I like it. So, yep, that's been today's video. I will probably, once I finish Edge Dancer, I might just record a little spiel about how I feel about it. I'll just tack that onto my video that I make about Rhythm of War. So this one was really long. I'm sorry. There is going to be very minimal editing in my videos because I just blab. I want to say as much as I want to. So yeah, so videos going forward are probably not going to be this long because I'll probably just talk about the book that I read and then give a book recommendation at the end. So this was a big boy, but I appreciate you if you have watched all the way to the end. Even if you skipped when I talked about the Stormlight Archive, I appreciate you for being here and for listening to me yap about books. If you have any recommendations for books that I should read, or if you have thoughts about the Stormlight Archive, just make sure you put a spoiler alert if you are going to comment on something that I said about the Stormlight Archives. But yeah, I'm so excited about this. I have no idea how often I'm going to be posting. I'm hoping to pump out at least one of these a month because I want to be reading a lot more. So yeah, with the Stormlight Archives book, the time in between posting videos will probably be longer because each of these puppies is like 1,200 pages at least. So, but I appreciate you and I will see you next time. Bye! Oh my gosh, I am so not excited to edit these.